Hello and welcome to this Let's Play for this game, Conflict of Heroes, Awakening the Bear. To give it its full title, Conflict of Heroes, Awakening the Bear, Russia, 1941-1942. You can kind of tell from these unfriendly looking folk on the main screen that this is a war game. It's a war game about people who don't like each other very much, and it's actually based on a fairly famous board game. It looks like a board game, it actually plays like a board game in some parts, but it's a good board game. It's quite a thrilling one. I've got to say I've had a lot of fun with this game. It's made me think about tactics, it's made me think about the way things work, and the great thing about the computer version is that there are no tables to look up, there's no modifiers, there's no dice, unless you really want to get into the mechanics of it in the background. You can just get on with enjoying the way the game works. So lots to like about this game. What we'll do is explain the game to you, show you what scope it has, and then play through the first turn so you can get a feel of the way it works. A full game maybe takes about an hour or so of each map, so we won't do all of that. We'll just give you enough to make your own mind up of whether it's the kind of thing whether it interests you or not. One thing we won't be looking at is the multiplayer. The game is still being actively supported. I think it came out last year, but patch 1.18 came out recently. I can't say whether there's an active community or not, but I would imagine it's the kind of game that if you were into multiplayer online board gaming almost, then this could be a good one to get into. It's certainly entertaining in single player. Let's have a look at what's on offer. Main scenarios, there are 10 of these, and 10 different maps. All of them have an interesting tactical challenge to them. We'll have a look at one of those later on. And 10 of those, 10 more of these. All interesting stuff. My favourite being, of course, the Turnip Field. What an exciting name for a scenario. Turnip Field, Awakening the Bear. Brilliant stuff. Okay, and then we've got 5 more to play with, which are slightly lumpier maps, a little bit more in terms of elevation. Lots of opportunity to be surprised in those ones. A couple more things to look at. Point by firefights. This plays with the rules a little bit, and this indicates you can download scenarios as well. So lots of content. As I say, it may just look like 25 maps, but they are good ones. And I think there's a lot of challenge and a lot of replay value in each of those maps. So let's have a look at one here. This one is fairly straightforward, quite an interesting map as an example. It's called The Monsters. It's actually used as one of the tutorial scenarios as well, because it teaches you how tanks work. This is very much a tank scenario. You can tell from the footage from the actual war, up in the top corner there. Yeah, that actually looks like how I imagine this map looks. Lots of open plains, slight rolling hills, lots of tanks on fire. What it's telling you in the briefing in this area here is actually what happened historically for this engagement. And do you know what? The Germans got their bottoms kicked fairly comprehensively. Now we're going to be playing Germany in part of this, and you get to see why, because I don't think I've lasted very long any time I've played this scenario. That's why I'm saying there is quite a lot of replay value to this, not only in actual beating the scenario, but actually playing it again and playing with different tactics. Let's get started, and you can see what I'm talking about. First thing we'll do is take oh, and Russia started. They had initiative. They started first. Those of you who are used to board games will know about terms like initiative, line of sight, things like front armour, side armour, these kind of things. All of these concepts are in here, modelled nicely by the computer for you, so you don't need to look them up. But here we go. Here's the map. It looks like a board game to start with, doesn't it? All hexy. That's going to be music to some of your ears, I'm sure. If you zoom in, you get to see the terrain in a little more detail, and instead of being a kind of boring board gaming looking thing, it's suddenly turned into quite an interesting looking war game. Graphics obviously not the best, serious war games hardly ever are, but it's not about the graphics, it's about the thought process and the things it made you think about. You may be able to hear in the background as well some fairly stirring music. That's similar to the graphics actually. The graphics are functional, they're not the best, but they do the job. Music does the same. It's as if the developers had a look at a list of tracks that were out of copyright and thought, you know, that's stirring, that fits with the game, let's put it all in there. There's no theme to the music, but it all is pretty fantastic. You've got things like Red Army songs, you've got this kind of themed music in the background, orchestral type music in the background. You've got things like Bach's Toccata and Fugue makes an appearance at one stage. None of it kind of goes with any other track, but it all kind of works with the game. Stops you getting bored with the background music. Right, time to have a look at the battlefield and what this scenario is asking us to do. Those of you who are used to these kind of games will know about victory locations. These are victory locations. It's a turn-based game. At the end of each turn, if you hold these locations, you get points. Also, as you go through, if you destroy enemy units, you get points as well. And the points are here in the right-hand side. And at the end of the game, when all 5 turns are up in this case, the person with the most points wins the game. So I can tell you it's not going to be me. The briefing is that the Russians hold the high ground. The Germans have a fairly weak armoured set of units here, and we essentially have to take the high ground and hold it, because by turn 3 Russians are going to be attacking us with some fairly meaty tanks. That's the briefing. The way the turns work, if you're used to turn-based games, you might have an inkling. XCOM, for example, Civilization, what you do is you take all your turns, you hit the big end turn button, and then the enemy takes all their turns, and you kind of go in an I go, you go sort of way, but taking all your turns at once. This one is fairly different. Each of the units has action points, so each of these ones I'm highlighting has 7 action points to use, but once I take an action with any particular unit, it's then those action points are deducted, but then the opponents have a turn. They get to use some of their action points up, and we keep going this much more interactive way. I go, you go, I go, you go, until we've all used our action points, and then it's the end of the turn. All will become clear as we go through. So let's analyse this map now, think what we want to do, and then work through, and I'll show you the way the mechanics actually work in action. So if I click on a unit here, there's a Panzer. What you see first of all is its line of sight. Anything that's light you can see and you can attack. Now you can see the words impossible shot coming up there. That's because this is a fairly weedy unit. This is a Panzer IIF. It has an attack strength of 4 versus armoured. This is a straight tank on tank battle for the most part. So that's the one. That's the statistic that's interesting for us. Compare it to the T26B here. That's got an attack strength of 6. This has an attack strength of 6. We are looking at a weedy unit here. This Panzer 4D, that's an attack strength of 2. That's weedy too. This one too, very weedy. So we have a very weak flank here. I can tell you that sort of in the middle, we're generally okay. These are 4s and 5s that we have here. We've got a couple of AT guns right out the back, some anti-tank guns that we'll want to use later on. The strategy I would like to employ is to retreat and then maybe attack on the flank if I possibly can. Attack taking advantage of the weaker armour that units have on this side. The program calculates all that for you, but you can take advantage of it. But because it's an I go, you go sort of game, we're not going to be able to move our units without being under fire. That's going to be tricky because these units are weak. They could be wiped out by the time they're in position. What the game wants us to do, I'm not sure whether it'll work yet, is really a head-on assault against this high ground. Let's have a go and see how that works. If I click on my strongest unit here, it's my spearhead unit, I should have the best chance of attacking with this unit. 16%. That's not looking great. These odds aren't really worth the ammunition, to be honest. So Things are looking bleak from the outset. Luckily, the game gives me a few ways and a few little tricks I can do to improve my odds. If you look here on the left-hand side, we have caps. Now what caps are, they're bonus points, and I can use them in a couple of ways. I can use them to increase my action points, give me more things I can do in a turn, or I can increase my odds of attacking. In the board game, this would give you an extra dice, and that's what the icon is saying.
Ja, Kamerad.
Let's have an extra
Ja, Kamerad.
dice. You don't need to think to worry about those mechanics. Game can tell you them if you want to know them. All you need to know is that increases my odds. If I now mouse over, it's gone from 16% to 41%. That's pretty cool. Do you know what? That's good. I am going to take those odds, see what it does. Nothing. Unfortunately, because I went, the Russians then had a go, they destroyed me. Things are actually looking pretty bleak for me, even at this early stage. That was my strongest unit. He's gone. He's gone entirely. I need to rethink. Straight ahead on attack might not be a good thing to do, you know. Right. Let's see what I'm going to do next. This is also a fairly strong unit. It's got attack strength of 5, similar odds, 18 and 16% base odds of attacking here. The game will let me do something clever. If you think, use your imagination for me a second. Imagine you're sitting there on top of your hill and there's a whole line of tanks coming towards you. That would be pretty terrifying. If they're acting in unison, they have got a better chance of hitting things if they're all firing their guns at the same time. They will add to each other's strength. It's also quite terrifying for you to see. The game can simulate this in one of its special rules. You learn about this in a tutorial. So let's do it. Let's see how this is going to work. Here I have a Panzer 38T. It's fairly strong, but at the moment it's out of the battle because it's behind these trees here. It can't see these units very well. It's got a 2% chance of hitting that one on the hill. That's not worth the ammunition. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hope I survive the counterattack from the Germans. I can suddenly see what I'm doing. Remove this armoured car there. So Germans are near the Russians are on the hill. And my units, they took their counterattack and missed me. So that's great. So let's have a look at that strongest unit again. It has a 16% chance of hitting that T-26B on the hill, but if I now group these units, they're acting in concert, they should have better odds. Let's have a look. 27% chance, that's a much better chance of hitting there on the hill. If I add some attack dice, use my caps pool, and that's finite, so I want to use it wisely. Suddenly I've got a 58% chance of hitting that guy there on the hill. That's worth taking. Let's see what happens. I've destroyed it. Things are looking good. We've had an exchange of tanks so far. You can see here that we've each got points, but things are looking good. Things are looking better anyway. Now we have a problem in that this this Russian unit here is approaching, but I have run out of action points here. You can see I have one each on each of these tanks, and yep, that's not great because it takes 3 to fire. So essentially they can move, but they're out of the battle in terms of offensive movements, and I only have my slightly weedier units here. What I want to do is, well, ideally take that guy out. Let's see if I can. Panzer! What are the chances? 16%. I'm worried about it because it hits head on. It's going against the strong armour of my tanks here, but I'm still worried that it hasn't done much so far. It poses a threat. What to do? Well, I don't think I'm going to be able to get these two units together and acting in concert before I'm wiped out, to be honest. So I'm going to try and take a shot. 16%.
Ja, Kamerad.
This is where some of the interesting mechanics come in. 41%. What do we think? It's still not great. I'm going to take it anyway. Well, hey, fantastic. We are doing fantastically with this. We're doing great. We've got rid of quite a lot of the threat from these hills.
Jawohl!
And I've got to say, I've played this scenario a few times. That's the first time I've ever been quite so lucky with that. Not doing as well as they might. I'm going to group these two together. This tank here, Panzer 4D, only has an attack strength of 2. This 2F has an attack strength of 4. Together, hopefully they will be able to do something. We are looking at this tank here, 16%. Again, not great.
Ja, Kamerad! Ja, Kamerad!
This is my last couple of attack dice there to up it to 41%. Damaged it. You know, I'm going to take that. I think this is pretty good. Aha! Something is happening. The camera zoomed out automatically. I'm thinking there are people on our flank outside our line of sight. Full fog of war is in effect. And we're going to be surprised from this side fairly soon. Okay, let's have a look what else we can do with our remaining action points. These guys still have action points. We've got a chance of attacking this guy. 16% base chance.
Ja, Kamerad!
Let's have a look here. 27% if we add in odds. Okay. They can still shoot. They can still shoot. Okay. Nothing here. We've taken damage. This particular vehicle is now immobilized. I would need to rally that for next time. Okay, so it's looking alright. It's not looking too bad. I'm left with these two tanks. That one is okay. This one's not great, but it does have the smoke ability. So what I would like to do, if I can, is pop some smoke. And that's not that great. Let's pop some smoke in front of... just basically to make it a little bit harder for the enemy to use this as a defense. Okay, wow, that is happening. The Russians are busy kicking my bottom, basically. So all is not well. Let's pop some smoke over here.
Wow! Panzer bereit!
He's outside my line of sight this time. This is a dangerous tactic. I'm to face him, but in doing so, I'm exposing my flanks, particularly to this AT gun here. But let's see, what can I do? If I attack him, what odds might we get? AI is generally pretty good in this game. Okay, so I... Okay, as I suspected, going after him in such a crazy foolhardy way, don't do that at home. It basically it shows the game mechanics fairly well by putting my weak armour to this AT gun here. As I said would happen, yeah, they've got me. That was pretty poor,
Jawohl!
but it shows the mechanics of the game pretty well. Okay. Bad tactics on my part. All I want to do with these AT guns is move them into the fray. Ideally, I would like to hold them back for bringing up later, and come turn 3, there are going to be some tanks appearing, and I would like to have them survive for that time. This 16% chance. Do you know, it's probably worth taking. What else is fitting those points? Okay. I've kind of reached the end of what I want to do. I can't move these guys anymore. I really don't want 280 guns in the field. And I think, actually, things are fairly finely balanced. Because I was stupid over this side, I've lost that tank. I've lost my 2 good tanks. I'm left with a mixed bag of tanks. It's going to be an interesting situation. Interesting to see what happens next. There are some mechanics that might work. You see these cards here? This is something that might help me out. I can
Panzer
have a
bereit!
free turn by playing cards. And let me see if that will help me out any at all. You get new cards at the end of every turn. Is that going to work? No, actually there's out of my line of sight because this burning tank gets in the way. So, again, perhaps that wasn't the best thing to have done. Sides. Shall we end the turn? Because I think I've done really badly with this. Let's pass that turn. Now they've got their remaining turns, any remaining action points that they've got, and you'll see that the first turn is now over. They are on 5 victory points. I'm on 2. Because I've managed to take 2 of their guys out. They've managed to take some of mine out, and they're holding the victory locations. I now have some extra cards that I can use. I can basically knock one of their units out. Let's do that now. There we go. That's basically saying that that particular unit is no longer in the battle for this turn. And the other thing I can do is I can have a hasty defense.
Wir haben verloren!
There we go. But it didn't matter at all because they took out my 80 gun. Things are looking bleak. I'm going to call that a day there. And here's the results of that sad story. I've just skipped to the end here so you can see that there's nothing particularly exciting about the end of the game. It just gives you all of the various statistics of what you've got, including a build replay if you want it. So lots of analysis possible at the end of the game, but it's not really about the analysis. It's all about the fun getting there. And I have to say, if you think you can do better, that's a good sign that this game is for you. I've really enjoyed playing it, and will continue to enjoy playing it for a little while. I think it's actually a cracking game. It looks like a serious game. It has a bit of the feel of the serious game, but it's a game that you can enjoy, pick up fairly quickly. It is quite gripping, and definitely starts the thought process off. So that's that. I hope you've enjoyed this brief video, this brief introduction to Conflict of Heroes. I recommend it. I think it's good. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you again sometime. Thanks.